Hi guys. Let's talk about ear infections, shall we? Because Satori had an ear infection this weekend and it lasted like less than 8 hours. So this is kind of a chronic thing that our kids are dealing with. A lot of kids will have ear infection over and over and over again, like sometimes 5 times in their first year. Why is that? Why are these ear infections getting worse and worse and worse with our kids? Okay, so let's learn about ear infections. There's 2 things that cause them: viruses and bacteria. Now, 70% of ear infections are caused by viruses. 30% of them are caused by bacteria. So if you have a bacterial infection in your ears, antibiotics are going to work. If you have a viral infection in your ears, antibiotics will not work. Now, is there any mom out there who has taken their child to a doctor with an ear infection and their doctor said, "This might be viral, I'm not going to prescribe antibiotics"? Chances are not. I have not had any moms come to me yet say that their doctor held off because they suspected it was a viral infection. See, doctors really do want to help, but there's nothing they can do for a viral infection in the ears. But they want to help. So they will prescribe an antibiotic because that is just kind of what the norm is. Doctors are really handcuffed to insurance companies. So they can't tell you, hey, let's wait and watch and see. Because 1, they don't have time. 2, they are overwhelmed with lots of clients. 3, the average time a doctor spends with you is like 2 to 12 minutes, or I think it's like 2 to 13 minutes. It's something ridiculous. They just don't have time to see to your needs and to wait and watch and see with you and to handhold you through this. It's a broken medical system. I didn't design it, but there are doctors fighting against it. Go listen to my podcast where we interview Dr. Sanders. He is incredible. He's one of those doctors that is changing the way our relationship is with our doctors. But anyways, so you go, your child has an ear infection and you are going to be prescribed antibiotics. This is problematic because, oh, my car just turned on, and it scared me because it goes from electric to gas. And so this is all shaking now. Let me switch it off real fast. All right. So 70% of your immune system is your gut bacteria. So when you take an antibiotic, you are essentially destroying your gut bacteria, which is your immune system. So you might be taking an antibiotic for nothing because there's a 70% chance that this is a viral infection. So you're taking an antibiotic, your gut bacteria is being destroyed, your immune system is going down. And then a few months later, your child gets another ear infection and their body is going to have a harder time fighting off that ear infection because of the antibiotic. Do you see how we have this negative cycle going on? So what do? Then you go to the doctor. They say, oh, we'll do another round of antibiotics. And then it weakens the immune system even more. And then your child gets another infection later because their body didn't learn how to fight off that infection properly. And you're constantly weakening it, right? So not only that, but every time you take an antibiotic, and this is in adult studies, not necessarily kids, but I think this is significant and you should know it. Every time you take an antibiotic, you are 14 to 34% more likely to start manifesting anxiety and depression. Why is that? Well, your gut is your second brain. It produces 200 times more serotonin than your actual brain. So if you are destroying all of those wonderful microbes that help produce serotonin, you're essentially messing with the chemistry of your brain and your immune system. So what do you do? What do you do when your child has an ear infection? I can't tell you because I'm not a doctor and I cannot meddle, but I'll tell you what I do. And whether you do the same thing, that would just be a weird coincidence. Okay. But I do recommend you listen to your doctors. Okay. So this is what I did when Satori was 1 year old and she had a raging ear infection in both of her ears. She was miserable for 2 days. And then I took her to the doctor and she checked her ears, and like oh my gosh, her ears were like so red. Like the doctor was like, oh my gosh, these are really bad ear infections. Here's a prescription for an antibiotic. And I was like, is this a viral or a bacterial? And she said, oh, it doesn't matter. It'll help. You'll see symptoms go away in 48 hours. I was like, okay. Of course I was scared because this is my child, for crying out loud. So, so I go home and I talk to Tristan, and I'm like crying. I'm like, oh, she's so miserable and I'm miserable. What do we do? And he said, well, let's wait and watch and see. Like, we have an ozonator. We can do ozone in her ears. We have mullein garlic. My mom concocted an essential oil blend that we rubbed around her ears. You never put essential oils in the ears, guys, just so you know. So we rubbed it around her ears. And then I took her to a chiropractor. She got an adjustment because apparently that helps boost their immune systems too. And then we watched her fever. Let me switch the car on because it's starting to get toasty in here. So then we watched her fever. She was miserable. Now, 70 to 80% of your healing and repairing happens while you're sleeping, okay? So sorry guys. Get some air in here. So what do we do about that? So when they have a massive infection and they can't sleep, what I had to do was decide what was more important, her to have a fever that is helping stimulate her immune system to fight off this infection, or her sleeping. Roughly around 1 o'clock in the morning, if she couldn't sleep at that time, then I would give her ibuprofen so that she would have a solid 8 hours of sleeping and healing and repairing. That's gonna, every parent kind of has to gauge. I do recommend to people to not jump to ibuprofen. Watch their fever. If they're at 101, they're fine. If they're at 102, they're okay. If they're at 103, start watching them every 30 minutes, okay? 103.5, that's when I start giving ibuprofen. Tristan even likes to push it to 104. I'm like, I don't want to mess with that. But so whenever she hit the 103.5, that's when I started doing the ibuprofen. And so in 48 hours, her ear infection cleared up completely. Now, remember, this was a really bad ear infection. And just like the doctor said, it will clear up in 48 hours, and it did, and we didn't give her one antibiotic. Since then, since over a year ago, she's had 2 other ear infections, and she overcame them in less than 24 hours. She had one this weekend. She woke up at midnight, crying because her ear was hurting, mom, hurting. And then she went back to sleep and woke up the next morning and it was gone. So why is that? Because her immune system, every time she gets an infection, her immune system creates antibodies, and it becomes that much stronger at fighting off infections. So that's just what we do. Hopefully you learned something new from this. Hopefully you know to push back on your doctors. If you go to your doctor with an ear infection and your child is miserable and they say take an antibiotic, ask them, can we test to see if this is viral or bacterial? Do you have a test for this? They most likely will say no. Maybe they won't. And kind of go from there. I wish we had a medical system set up where we could wait and watch and see, where it was okay to just call your doctor with the symptoms and say, hey, it's been 24 hours, my child is experiencing this, what do you think? And your doctor would then be like, hey, they're doing great, let's keep watching and waiting and seeing. Unfortunately, because of the insurance companies, doctors cannot do that. Dr. Sanders can, however. So if you can get a doctor that has his own membership with his patients, that would be fantastic. Go listen to my podcast to learn all about that and how to find doctors like Dr. Sanders, because it's an incredible and an incredibly important grassroots movement that's happening amongst a lot of doctors these days. So long story short, don't jump to antibiotics because it makes it harder for their bodies to fight these infections off down the line. Okay. Just a word of warning, if you have gone down this route of constant antibiotics, constant ear infections, their immune systems are so weakened that you might have to, and if it was my child, this is what I would do if I had this epiphany. I would actually buy an ozone machine. And every time they had an infection, I would put ozone in their ears, as well as the mullein garlic. And take them to a chiropractor, do the ozone a couple times a day, if they'll let you, do the mullein garlic 3 times a day, and just watch them. Let their immune system do its thing, okay? Hopefully this is helpful, guys. Hopefully you, oh my goodness, there's a big fat bee that just flew in my car. So I'm gonna go and get rid of that. See you guys later. Beauties of living in the mountains. Ah.